Kennedy, if you bought a new house, we're moving in with you. It's unthinkable for part of the family to leave the rest of us behind. Now that you're married to Cody, we're all in this together. Why do you have to stick so close to us? This is Cody's and my life. Don't you think it's time to let your son go? Why should we have to do that? Cody may be married, but he's still part of our family. And since you married Cody, you're now part of our family too. I appreciate you saying that, but I'm not a fan of being tied down. Regardless, I'm going to live with you too. It's useless to say no. If you won't accept it, I'll make you get a divorce. All right then. In that case, we'll get divorced. When I said that, my in-laws seemed overjoyed. They must be thrilled about being able to move into a new house. And no doubt they're happy to remove me from the family. I was fed up with my in-laws, so I'm feeling refreshed to get away from them. However, on moving day, I got an angry call from my mother-in-law Matilda. She must have finally realized she fell into the trap I set. What's going on here? This isn't what we agreed on. This is unacceptable. Do you have any idea how awful what you've done is? It's too late to say that now. Cody and I are already divorced, so I have nothing to do with you anymore. Just accept living in that house quietly. Bye. Then, as if he'd been listening in, my ex-husband Cody took over for Matilda. You think you can get away with this? I never knew you were this unreasonable. I'm baffled as to why I ever married someone like you. Right back at you. When I said that, Cody fell silent, apparently unable to find a retort. I hope they, thinking only of themselves, will suffer thoroughly. My name is Kennedy, 28 years old. I work at a real estate company I joined after graduating college. My job isn't to do sales myself, but to entertain clients brought in by our company's salespeople. So I don't do any outside work, and am always in the office. But this job involves talking with many people, so there are apparently a lot of chances to meet someone compared to other companies. Thanks to that, I started dating someone I met through work a few years ago, and we ended up getting married. When I first met Cody, he was a truly wonderful man. He forgave me no matter what I said and always put me first. When I introduced Cody to my friends, they were so envious. Cody really is a great guy. You won't find many like him, so you have to cherish him. I guess you met him because you're a good person too, Kennedy. I'm so happy to hear you praise him like that. I've never met such a good man either. That's why I intend to treasure him. We just got married, so there's still a lot I don't know though. But you dated him for a long time before getting married, right? So you must know him pretty well. Everyone around us is starting to get married too, but I think Cody is the best of all. There aren't many people who can think that much of their spouse. That may be true, but I can't relax just yet. I don't know what kind of people Cody's parents are, and there's the whole daughter-in-law issues too. They seemed like good people when we met though. If they raised a guy like Cody, his parents must be good people. But you never know what might happen in this world, so you can't be totally at ease. If anything happens, you can always talk to me. I'm on your side, Kennedy. I'm so happy to hear you say that. I'm always relying on you. Sorry about that. My friends praise Cody a lot. I like Cody too, but when my friends compliment him, I end up liking him even more. It makes me think I have to treasure him more, and reaffirms just how precious he is. Even after getting married, Cody stayed a good man, always putting me first. From what I hear, a lot of people change completely after marriage, so I'm really grateful for Cody's personality. But a few months after we got married, Cody started acting strange recently. He'd leave me at home and frequently go back to his parents' place. I didn't know what he was doing, so I decided to ask him. "You've been going back to your parents a lot lately. What are you doing there? If something happened with your family, I'd like you to tell me about it." "Is there some issue you can't even tell me about?" "It's nothing. I just go back because I want to." "Or is there some reason I'm not allowed to visit my own family?" "I didn't think you were the kind of woman to be so controlling." "That's not what I meant, but why are you talking like that? You've been acting weird lately. Did something happen?" "If you're having trouble at work, I'm here to listen. Just because you're some big shot at a real estate firm, you think you can boss me around? If you have that much free time, why don't you find us a house to live in? You're in real estate, so it should be easy, right?" "All right, I'll look for a house for the two of us then. Do you have any particular conditions you want?" "I'll take those into consideration if you do. We might have kids in the future, so I want as big a house as possible. We don't know how many we'll have, so find the biggest place you can." Since Cody told me to, I started looking for a house. I wasn't thrilled with how he said it, but I'm glad he's thinking about things like our future kids. Honestly, if we were a normal couple, it might be weird to be happy about just this. But I've been worried with Cody constantly going back to his parents' place, so even this made me happy. And when I was looking for a house for the two of us, I found a few good ones. So I decided to suggest them to Cody. Cody is the type to carefully consider everything, so I don't expect him to make a decision right away. But I'm hoping to at least get his opinion. I was thinking about that when Cody happened to get home from work. So I decided to talk to him about the house stuff. "Hey, I found a few good houses. Can you take a look? I'm not saying you have to choose from these, I just want your opinion. This is the house we'll be living in from now on, so let's decide carefully. Oh right, I forgot to tell you something, Kennedy. Actually, my mom and Alexis are coming over today. So get things ready. If you don't tidy up the rooms more, Mom will get mad at you." "I never heard anything about that. What's going on? If they're coming, tell me way in advance. There's only so much I can do if you spring this on me suddenly." "I thought I told you, but I was busy with work and forgot." "It's not something to get that mad about. What's with you? You just need to clean a bit, so don't get so angry. We just got married, so I don't want Matilda to hate me. I can't believe you don't understand how I feel. I was trying to talk about the house and everything, but now that plan is ruined." "Why are you so mad?" "It's just two family members coming over. And we can talk about the house whenever, it's fine. You're in real estate, you must talk about houses all day. If anything, I figured you wouldn't want to talk about it. Talking about real estate for work and talking about the house we'll live in are completely different. I've been squeezing in time to look this whole time. Why are you saying such awful things? I was so happy when you said we should look for a house." Cody doesn't seem to understand my feelings at all, looking totally unfazed. It's not like I'd react this badly if Matilda and my sister-in-law Alexis were nice people. But Matilda and Alexis seem to hate me, always acting superior and pressuring me. I haven't told anyone, but it's really stressing me out. I haven't told Cody because I don't want to make him worry. So I don't think he's noticed at all. Still, I'm clearly showing how much I hate this. I'm so disappointed he won't sympathize with me at all. He was so kind before we got married. Why did it end up like this? Before we got married, he was desperate to win me over. But now that he has me, maybe he stopped caring. But now that we're married, I can't just easily get divorced. So I start getting ready for the two of them to come, even though I don't want to. But while I'm getting ready, the two of them show up. My, I thought he told you we were coming, but you're still cleaning up. You really are a slob through and through. I can't believe why Cody married you. I'm sorry, I only just heard you two were coming. If I knew in advance, I would have gotten ready. You think that excuse will fly? You should keep things tidy even if we weren't coming. Living in a messy house, there must be something wrong with you. It wasn't that messy. I'm almost done cleaning, so please wait a bit. Go on in and relax with Cody for now. Geez, making us go out of our way. There's definitely something wrong with you. If you're part of our family, you need to get your act together. I heard you work for a real estate firm, so I thought you'd be more capable than this. The two of them just keep bad-mouthing me. It seems like they dote on Cody so much that they don't like me, his wife. I heard before that the two of them told Cody he never had to get married. Normally you'd think they'd want him to get married, but apparently this family is different. They want to stay together as much as possible. Alexis apparently chose not to get married for that reason. But there's nothing I can do even if they say that to me after we're already married. If they're going to complain, I wish they'd complain to Cody who chose to get married. But even when they say stuff to me, Cody doesn't take my side at all. He doesn't seem to care even when I try talking to him directly about it. Why did those two suddenly decide to visit? Honestly, I don't like them, so I want them to leave soon. At this rate, it's going to really stress me out. Apparently they're renovating their house, so they'll be staying with us for a while. We just got married, so you're not used to it yet, but you'll get used to it with this visit. If you don't get along with them soon, it'll just stay awkward. I never heard about this. This makes no sense. Why didn't you tell me about something so important way sooner? How long are they planning to stay? I don't know the details, but just assume we'll be living together. We got married and became a family, so deal with at least that much. We're trying to buy a new house anyway, so it works out. Wait a second, you're planning to live together even in the new house? Is that why you said to find a place that fits a lot of people? We're family, so don't ignore me like this. You don't have to get so mad. We're family. Living with 2 people or 4 people, it's no different. Anyway, just find a house for all of us to live in. What Cody is saying makes absolutely no sense. We finally got married, so why do we have to live with 4 people? I was worried, so I asked before we got married, but he said there was no chance of a 2-family home. But now that he's saying this after we're married, I can't accept it. But it seems like the other 3 are moving forward with this without me. I accidentally overheard them talking about living together when I wasn't around. I wonder what kind of place the new house will be. If possible, I'd like somewhere with a big yard. She's a real estate agent, so she'll find a good place. We can just relax and wait. That's why you married a real estate agent after all. She better find a good house for us or we'll be in trouble. She can't do anything besides her job, so at least she can look for a house. For now, let's keep talking about this without her finding out. We just need to get our hands on a good house. I had no idea they were scheming behind my back like this. I can't believe the reason Cody married me was for a house. I'm sure Cody had other reasons too, but Matilda and Alexis really seemed to be in it for the house. So that's why he was nice to me before we got married, but suddenly got cold and started going back to his parents' place after the wedding. Now that I've heard that, I can't put up with this anymore. I've decided to divorce Cody. I won't forgive them for harassing me so much while planning to benefit themselves. They tried to use me, so I'll make absolutely sure they regret it. While keeping those feelings to myself and pretending I hadn't heard anything, I proceeded with the meeting about the house with Cody. About the new house, is it okay if I decide everything? I'll make sure it's a house the four of us can comfortably live in, so don't worry. You're a real estate agent after all, so find us a good place. Alexis said she wants somewhere with a big yard, so consider that too. And Mom said she wants to get a pet, so I'm counting on you for that as well. I see, so a house with a big yard where we can have pets. The pets shouldn't be an issue since it's our own place. But if we want a big yard, it might end up being a bit in the countryside. That's not a problem at all, so don't worry about it. The place Mom and Alexis live now is pretty rural too. Dad works away from home and doesn't come back, so you don't have to think about that. I hadn't heard about Taylor, so he works away from home? But is it really okay to decide on the house without getting their opinion? If we're going to live together, shouldn't we discuss it with them? Those two are leaving it to you since you're a real estate agent. So you can go ahead without worrying about them. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility, so don't worry. It's just until the renovations on their house are done anyway. We don't have to think too hard about it. Cody says that, but I know better since I overheard them. Rather than trusting me, they're just trying to use me. Honestly, I say the four of us will live together to Cody, but I have no intention of that. I'll wait for the right moment, then send my in-laws crashing down. I'm sure once we buy the new house, they'll say we're all living together forever. So that's what I'm aiming for as I advance my plan. I don't know how it will turn out in the end, but I'll keep thinking things over as I proceed with the plan. But even while I'm thinking about that, Matilda and Alexis keep harassing me. As for Alexis, apparently she quit her job right when she came to stay with us. And she has the nerve to demand money from me. Hey, I heard real estate agents make good money. Is that true? If it is, I'll hold on to it for you. I used to work at a bank, so you can feel safe in trusting it to me. You don't have to go to the trouble. I have the bank managing it properly, so don't worry. Thank you for your concern though. You really don't get it, do you? I'm telling you to hand over the money now. We let you marry Cody, so the least you can do is give us some money. Why should I have to give you money? And if you need money, I think you should work for it. I don't get why you're demanding it from me at all. We're family now, so of course we should combine our bank accounts. As a first step, you can let me hold on to your money. Of course I'll give it back to you after increasing it, so don't worry about that. Increase it? You mean you're planning to go gambling again? I heard from Cody that you do that a lot. Please don't use my hard-earned money for that. Geez, you're really hopeless. Even after I explained this much, you won't hand over the money. You're way too stingy. If you're going to be like that, I'll make Cody divorce you. If you like Cody that much, why don't you get money from him? If you can really increase it, I'm sure Cody would be thrilled. And I think you should ask Cody first before me anyway. What are you saying? Cody's salary is low, so I feel bad for him. You must have a screw loose if you don't get that. I won't forgive you if you keep this up. So you don't feel bad for me? This makes absolutely no sense. Anyway, I have no intention of giving you money. When I said that, Alexis stormed off somewhere, probably realizing she definitely wasn't getting the money. I guess even Alexis couldn't do anything after I firmly refused like that. But trying to live with us and even demand money from me, it's totally absurd. The more they stress me out like this, the more I want to get back at them majorly. That said, I didn't think Alexis would give up that easily, so I decided to watch the situation for a while. The next morning, while thinking about that, I checked my bag. The money I put in there to pay utility bills was gone. The timing made me suspect Alexis, so I watched her for a bit. And sure enough, I caught her stealing my money. It seems she's been taking money not just for utilities, but from my wallet too. And it's not just Alexis harassing me, but Matilda too. Is the new house still not decided? If you don't hurry, the renovations on our place will be done. I want to live in the new house, so decide quickly. I'm looking as hard as I can, but it's just not getting decided. For 4 adults to have plenty of space, it has to be a pretty big house. There are some if we go a bit rural, but... Oh, just pick one of those then, let's decide. If you don't find a house soon, it'll be cramped here. How long are you going to make us suffer? You don't have to say it like that. I'm scrambling to deal with you all suddenly deciding to live with us. Just hurry up and decide on a house. Make it so we can move in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'll have Cody divorce you. Oh, okay. Normally, I'd hate only being told unpleasant things, but for me, fully intending to divorce Cody, those words made me happy. I decided to take what Matilda said at face value and act on it. So no matter what they say to me, there's no room for argument. After all, it's what Matilda herself told me to do. And just as they requested, I found a suitable house and brought it up with Cody. He said to put it in his name so he doesn't look bad to Matilda and Alexis. Putting it in your name means you're paying the down payment too, right? We can split the mortgage payments, but the down payment is set low anyway, so it's fine. More importantly, I want it in my name in case something happens. I want to be able to say it's my house no matter what. If you're okay with that. And you don't need to check anything else about the house? You won't complain even if I go ahead with the contract like this? You took Mom and Alexis' opinions into account, right? Then I won't nitpick. You can double-check with them if you want, but I don't think they'll say anything. I'll check with them so I don't get complained at if something happens. I'm afraid they'll gripe and push responsibility onto me. I'll confirm with them tomorrow, and go ahead with the contract if it seems all right. As long as it's in my name, I don't care about the details. You 3 women can do whatever you want with the rest. Since he said that, I decided to get confirmation from those 2 so they wouldn't have any complaints. It seems like they trust me with finding a property since I'm a real estate agent. So I don't think they'll have any objections, but I wanted to check just in case. I have to, or else I feel like they'll gripe at me in all sorts of ways after we move. Thinking that, I immediately went to confirm with the 2 of them. I found the house we'll be living in next, but can you check it? It's a property with a big yard and ability to have pets that you 2 mentioned. That said, I assume you 2 will move out right away, but if it has a big yard, anywhere is fine, just hurry it up. I heard you were a capable real estate agent, but you're way too slow. If you're thinking of us, put a move on it. Anywhere is fine with me too as long as it's bigger than here. But having pets has always been my dream, so keep that in mind. Just get a move on or staying here will get depressing. I'm going as fast as I can here. It has the conditions of a big yard and allowing pets, so are we good? Then I'll go ahead with the contract on this house. We don't need you to check that stuff. Just hurry up and sign the contract. How long are you going to make us live here? You really don't think of your family at all. I'm sick of it. Having firmly gotten statements from both of them, they have no right to complain no matter what kind of house it is. And it's huge that Cody is paying the down payment even though we're splitting the cost of the house. I wanted to reduce the amount I'm responsible for even a little. He's not usually this generous with money, so I think Matilda is assisting him. When I told Cody the contract was complete, Matilda and Alexis called for me. You finally decided on a house. You really are incapable at your job. Well, we'll be living together from now on, so I'm counting on you. Even if you say we're living together, it's just until the renovations are done, right? Oh, did I not tell you? We are renovating, but we already sold our old house. So we intend to live with you permanently. I never heard anything about that. Why didn't you tell me something so important? If it's true, I definitely think you should have said so from the start. What's the difference between living together a little while or forever? Just think of it as the time frame getting a bit longer. Are you trying to say you hate living with us that much? I really think Mom is totally right. Do you dislike living with my family that much? I can't believe you would say something like that. I just feel like my opinion isn't being considered at all. No matter how you look at it, it's wrong, so I don't want to live together. You could think about my feelings a little more. If you're that against living with us, we'll have Cody divorce you. I bet you don't want that, right? So live with us. And keep doing the housework for us too. If I have to go that far, then please divorce me. I loved Cody, but he's been strange lately. Please, all of you, go live in the new house or whatever. Oh, is that so? Works for us. Sorry you went to the trouble of finding a house though. The three of us, without you in the way, will live happily as a family. Everything contract related is finished, so rest assured. All that's left is paying for the house and alimony from the divorce. What do you mean alimony? I said I'd pay the down payment, but I never heard anything about alimony. There are a few things I want to claim, but first, you're cheating. Did you really think I hadn't noticed? Actually, when Cody suspiciously started going back to his parents more after we got married, I hired a private investigator. And it came out that while saying he was going to his parents, he was really going on dates with his coworker at work. I only found this out very recently, so I was planning to bring it up at this opportunity. Cody didn't seem to realize I had hired an investigator. And if I brought it up before deciding on divorce, I figured he'd try to talk his way out of it. So I properly asked the investigator to prepare evidence like photos. Either Cody had no idea I was doing this, or he's acting extremely surprised. Matilda and Alexis didn't seem to know either, unable to hide their shock. And when I lay out the photographic evidence, the three of them stare at it intently. I can't believe this was going on. I thought it was suspicious, so I had my investigator thoroughly investigated you. I thought you were going back to your parents way too much. Any man will have an affair or two. If you can't even forgive that, you're a really small-minded woman. Alexis will have to pay alimony too. Why should I have to pay alimony? I haven't cheated, so I have no obligation to pay. Alexis, you were stealing my money, right? The money for utility bills and from my wallet. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Don't spout nonsense with no proof. If it's proof you want, I have video I secretly took. And no way. Alexis, you borrowed money from me too, and you were doing stuff like that? Apparently, even though she told me she couldn't borrow from Cody, she must have gotten desperate. It seems she borrowed from him too. Not knowing that, Matilda looks flabbergasted. Anyway, please just pay the alimony and for the house. It's in Cody's name, so you all have the obligation to pay. This can't be. After that, the three of them moved into the new house at the address I sent them. The place we were living until now, I canceled the lease right at the renewal timing. So I'm at my parents' place. I thought I might be a bit lonely after the divorce, But with my parents and cat here, I don't feel that lonely. If anything, I feel refreshed being away from my in-laws. While I was relaxing like that, I got an intense call from Matilda. Judging from the number of missed calls, something must have happened. I'm sure she realized the plot I schemed. I don't want them coming to the house, so I decided to answer. Hey, what is going on here? You tricked us, didn't you? Do you think you can get away with this? You sound really angry, but what happened? I just found a house that met your requests. And I got confirmation from you all before signing the contract. The house came with a ranch, and we're obligated to raise animals. I never heard anything about that. What are you going to do about this? It has a ranch as the big yard, and pets were already included. Alexis isn't working, so she can raise them. I just did exactly what you all told me to. There's no way we can raise cows. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Anyway, we can't live somewhere like this. It's too late. The contract is already in Cody's name. Live there until you find a new place. I won't forgive you for this. Prepare yourself. When I got your permission, you all signed the contract, remember? So no matter what, this will work out in my favor. In no way. When did you do that? Did you know we were trying to use you? I overheard that conversation too. Too bad, but you have no choice but to live there. This can't be. Why do we have to live on a ranch? If she has evidence of everything, we can't do anything. Now that I have proof, no one can argue back anymore. Actually, when I got their permission, I had them sign a written agreement just in case. So none of them can dispute it at all. The three of them were so eager to move that they signed without suspecting a thing. In the end, according to my coworker handling Cody and the others, they sold their old house too. So they're living in the rural house with the ranch that I picked out. It took time to find a property that came with a ranch that needed managing, but I'm glad I worked hard for it. I was able to properly get alimony from Cody, and now I'm living comfortably at my parents' place. I don't know what will happen from here on, but I'm going to believe in myself and keep living my life. I've gotten calls from Cody and Matilda asking me to help them, but I don't think they're worth helping. So I'm blocking their calls and just getting updates from my coworker. I told my coworker to be strict with Cody and the others. So I think they'll be living in that house with the ranch for a while. Mom, actually. I looked down at my daughter, Lucy, in surprise. It was the first time she had called me Mom. Lucy, my husband's child from a previous marriage, hadn't warmed up to me all over the past year. But now, she had called me that for the first time. I almost teared up as she reached out her right hand to me. In her open palm lay a single ring. What's this? On closer inspection, it was a wedding ring. Judging by its size, it belonged to a woman. It's for Mom, who gave birth to me. I squatted down in front of a trembling, downcast Lucy. You're real Mom's, huh? Do you want to meet her? My husband was overseas on a business trip. I gently asked, thinking she must be feeling lonely with just the two of us, strangers, at home. No. I want you to throw this away. What? As you know. As I listened to Lucy, I could feel myself getting enveloped in anger. I should leave, shouldn't I? I hugged my 10-year-old daughter, who had come to such a conclusion, tightly. Stroking Lucy's crying head, I whispered softly, "Tell her tomorrow, as you wish. I won't let anyone make my daughter cry. She'll get what she deserves. My name is Kate. I'm 29 years old. I got married last year and am now a stay-at-home wife. My husband, Mike, is 37 years old, and this is a second marriage for both of us. We met at work. Aside from the fact that the workplace was my father's company, it was a very normal relationship between colleagues. By the time I joined, he had already divorced his previous wife, but he was a very reliable presence as a colleague. Lucy, his daughter from that marriage, is 10 years old. Even a year after marrying Mike, she hasn't warmed up to me at all. Lucy would answer when I asked her something. She would eat her meals without leaving anything behind. But she never initiated conversation with me or talked about school or her friends. I suppose it's part of being a teenager, but it still made me feel lonely. I heard that the divorce with Lucy's real mother and was bitter. She drank a lot and was unfaithful. Mike had said that if it weren't for Lucy, he would have divorced her much sooner. Sometimes when he came home late at night, the house would be empty. There were several occasions when Lucy, still a preschooler at the time, was left home alone, crying. So, they fought often. Lucy, seeing her parents like this, kept crying and saying she didn't want them to separate. Lucy was really pitiable back then, Mike had said. Certainly, being left alone, feeling lonely and scared, crying. Then, because of that, seeing her parents fighting. It was a time when she should have been more and more spoiled by her mom. Instead of just playing, laughing with friends, being unconditionally loved by her parents, and going to sleep happily every night. When she was in kindergarten, those days should have been the norm. I wanted to tell and to her face that she was a failure as a mother. On the day Lucy became a second grader and disappeared, leaving only the ring and a signed divorce petition on the table. The breakfast dishes were left unwashed, and the laundry was undone. Lucy probably didn't even know what a divorce petition was. Thinking about Lucy waiting for her mother's return in such a home made me feel unbearable. A year later, Mike was raising Lucy alone. Even before that, Mike often taught me a lot about work and helped me out. So, I tried to take some of his work off his shoulders and stayed late with him so he could go home earlier. But it wasn't just me. Everyone helped Mike, who was capable and kind at work. When the elementary school called to say Lucy had a high fever, I was the one who made a fuss. Please go home early. It's pitiful she's running a fever. But I have a meeting this afternoon. At least let me make an apology call. Manager. It's okay if he leaves now, right? I'll make the apology call to the meeting attendees. My voice seemed to echo down the hallway. I'll explain to the meeting attendees myself, said my father, who happened to be passing by in the hallway, allowing Mike to leave immediately. After work, I also visited Lucy to cheer her up, and this event brought Mike and me even closer than before. Knowing his accomplishments and character at the company, my parents didn't oppose my marriage to Mike, who had a history of divorce, at all. I think of Lucy as my real family. But reality is harsh. Contrary to my feelings, even a year after getting married, Lucy hadn't warmed up to me. But, on the night Mike left for an overseas business trip, Lucy approached me. Mom, actually. I stopped what I was doing in the kitchen and turned around. I looked down at Lucy, incredulous. Finally, she had called me that for the first time. Tears welled up in my eyes. I almost burst into tears. Sniffling, I looked at Lucy's right hand that she held out to me. In her open palm was a small ring. What's this? It was a wedding ring upon closer inspection. Likely belonging to a woman. It's from the mom who gave birth to me. I wiped my hands on my apron and squatted down in front of Lucy, who was looking down and trembling. Even if she was a terrible mother, she might still be important to Lucy. My husband was overseas on a business trip and would be away for a while. I gently asked, thinking she must be feeling lonely with just the two of us, strangers, at home. So she's your real mom, huh? Do you want to meet her? But Lucy shook her head. I want you to throw this away. What? Why? I asked, puzzled by her sudden request. I met Mom yesterday. Yesterday? When yesterday? After school. Not just yesterday. I've seen Mom several times on my way home from school, asking about my new mom. Even when I say I don't know, she keeps asking. About me? I wondered why. The last bit of maternal love? Did she want to make sure her daughter was being taken care of? My thoughts were completely betrayed. The new mom, you're rich, right? I heard Dad works for the company owned by your father, right? Chills ran down my spine. An indescribable sense of disgust rose within me. Anything else? Didn't she say anything else? She said she met Dad too. Told him to hand over Lucy or bring money. But it seems Dad doesn't have much money. Next, she said she'd tell the new mom, so you should make a fuss about not wanting to go. Lucy started crying. I felt myself getting enveloped in anger. I should leave, shouldn't I? I hugged my 10-year-old daughter, who had come to such a conclusion, tightly. Stroking Lucy's crying head, I whispered softly, "Tell her tomorrow, as you wish. I won't recognize such a person as a mother. I won't let anyone make my daughter cry. She'll get what she deserves." That night, after Lucy went to sleep, I called Mike. I wanted to confirm what Lucy had told me today. It's true. I didn't tell Kate because I didn't want to worry her, but to ambush Lucy. I didn't know she was meeting Lucy too. This is the first I've heard. But I did ask Lucy if she wanted to live with her previous mom. She's no good, but she is Lucy's real mother. However, Lucy said no. She wants to stay here. So, I thought I'd handle it myself. It seems she's been coming to meet Lucy quite often. Anne. I could feel Mike's anger through the phone. I understand how you feel. Anyway, I'll go meet and with Lucy on the next school holiday. Mike sounded panicked at my words. Wait. Can't you wait until I return home? It's impossible. That woman made Lucy cry. I can't stay silent any longer. Don't worry, Mike, I said and hung up. The next day, while organizing my room, Lucy came back from school. How was it? Was she there today? Did she give you the note? Yes. She said to make sure to come on Saturday at 10 a.m. Good. Thank you. The note I specified was for a meeting at a cafe on Saturday, a school holiday, with the three of us. She'll come thinking she'll just get money without any suspicion. Seeing Lucy's downcast face, "Then let's go buy some clothes to wear," I suggested. Eh? Yes, we have to dress up. Since Saturday will be the last day you'll see her, I confirmed with Lucy, who was frozen. Are you really okay with not seeing her anymore? Yes. I don't want to see someone who troubles Dad and Mom anymore. Lucy answered firmly with determined eyes. Then I'll get ready, so go wash your hands and gargle. There's a snack in the fridge. I watched Lucy run energetically to the washroom and started putting the old books I had taken out into a paper bag. Lucy and I, dressed in clothes that anyone could tell were from high-end brands at a glance, headed to the cafe for our appointment. I wouldn't normally choose clothes this way. Whether expensive or cheap, I want to dress Lucy in clothes that suit her, that she likes. But today alone, even this serves as an attack on the other party. Lucy, no matter what I say or what she says, will you trust me? After nodding, Lucy and I entered the cafe hand in hand, confidently. Oh, Lucy. Dressed in such nice clothes. They suit you well. Anne, who had arrived earlier, said with a broad smile upon seeing Lucy. Come sit next to me. Ignoring Anne's words, Lucy sat next to me. Anne's face twitched slightly, but she managed a smile. I too smiled and deliberately placed a heavy paper bag and a branded bag in front of Lucy. Keep an eye on this, it's important. Anne's eyes changed. She stared at the paper bag, thinking it contained luxury bags and money. I ordered coffee for myself and a cake set for Lucy. After introducing ourselves, I quickly brought up the topic. So you want to take Lucy back? That's right. She's my dear daughter, after all. I want to raise her myself. Is that so? I heard from Mike that, Kate, you've been treating Lucy like your own daughter, haven't you? Yes, of course. And so, it pains me to take Lucy away from you. Instead, I was thinking, maybe I could receive something in return, you know? I pretended to be confused and tilted my head. In return? What kind of? You know what I mean. Sorry, I'm not quite familiar with these things. There was a silence, and I sipped my coffee. To Lucy, who had been looking down at her mobile phone. Eat up. It's delicious. I encouraged her to eat the cake in front of her, and was getting irritated by our behavior. After a while of silence, she leaned forward. Come on, money, money. Money? I asked back loudly, pretending to be surprised. And frowned. Obviously. Anne sighed. As if it's a big deal to give up my precious daughter. That sort of compensation. At that point. No. I interrupted. I am a woman too. I understand how precious a child is to a mother. I have no intention of taking Lucy away from Anne. Eh? And was dumbfounded, and Lucy, surprised, dropped her fork and looked up at me. I picked up the fork that had fallen on the table and handed it back to Lucy. Was she feeling betrayed? Though it pained my heart to think so, I decided to trust Lucy, who had nodded her trust in me. What are you saying? Therefore, if Anne and Lucy wish, I will return Lucy to Anne. I'll also help persuade Mike. Anne, as if in disbelief. Wait a minute. Laughed. She looked at Lucy anxiously. Lucy, what about you? You don't want to be separated from Kate and Dad, right? She said, almost assuming. Lucy looked at Anne, then at me, before looking down. Then she raised her head. Either is fine. And started looking at her mobile phone screen again. Are you stupid? And slammed the table. Lucy looked up. Then I'll take child support. $10,000. No, that's not enough. First, give me $50,000. And was desperate. Gradually losing composure, her true nature was showing. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my arms leisurely. That's not for Anne to decide, right? There's a set method for calculating that. Whether to pay more than that is something Mike should discuss. It's not for me to pay, I stated clearly. Anne, who had thought she could easily get money, was getting increasingly frustrated. But I faced her squarely without changing my expression. This is just the beginning. I'll press on from here. So that you never appear before Lucy again. You told Lucy, right? As you wish. Yes. You haven't done it at all. His father is the president of a company, right? Money should be no object. As Anne's voice grew louder. People are watching. I whispered, glancing around, and clamped her mouth shut. I dramatically sighed before speaking. What are you saying? I confirmed it with you first, didn't I? You said you wanted to take Lucy back, that you wanted to raise her yourself. So, I offered my support. Is there something wrong with that? Something wrong, you say? Anne's lips quivered. I pressed on further. Also, I have a question. How do you plan to support Lucy? Child support is meant to cover the necessary expenses for Lucy's life, right? It's not meant to be spent on your luxuries. You are the one supposed to cover the basic living expenses. That's what I said. That's ridiculous. That man ran off with a younger woman, leaving me behind. Lucy, if it comes to this, you're coming with me. If you don't want to suffer, cry with me and beg this woman. Ask her to pay money to Mom. Her desperation was unseemly. Living selfishly, always depending on someone else without trying to make an effort. And to think she claims to have been betrayed in the end, it was her own fault. So, let me get this straight. You have no intention of raising Lucy, but you said you wanted to take her back because you want money? Anne didn't answer. Just glared at me. I'll keep harassing you until I get the money. I'll even go to Lucy's school. I'll claim that despite being her mother, I was robbed of her. I'll scream in front of your house and make sure the neighbors see your shame. And growled in a low voice, no longer caring about appearances. Enough is enough. I reached for the bag in front of Lucy and pulled out a small voice recorder. I turned it off and showed it to Anne. That's a clear threat. And with this, no one will think to give you custody, income aside. And, frustrated, stood up and reached out to snatch the voice recorder from me. I pulled the recorder away to prevent it from being taken. A hand reached out from the side and grabbed Anne's wrist. Both Anne and I looked in that direction. Dad! Lucy's voice echoed in the cafe. Mike? What are you doing here? And was astonished. I too wanted to know why Mike was here. Mike returned Anne's call with a cold look. If you try to harm my wife, I'll sue you. It was the first time I saw Mike speak so sternly. Dad! He gently stroked Lucy's head as she hugged him. Mike, the business trip? Wondering how he could be here when he was supposed to be overseas. How could I not come back for a family emergency? He smiled. Then he turned his gaze back to Anne. When will you realize? As a mother, you're no longer accepted by your daughter. Your behavior is despicable. Despite the anger in his voice, Mike spoke calmly. But even this must have been a severe blow to Anne. It might have been more effective than any of my arguments. And looked down for a while, trembling with frustration. At least, she muttered something low, reaching out and pulled the paper bag toward herself. Then at least give me this. Anne clutched the bag. Sure. I easily agreed. I was planning to sell it to a second-hand bookstore anyway, so if you'd like, please take it. At my words, and let out. Upon checking the contents, I don't want these dirty books. Her reaction was exactly as I had anticipated. I secretly sighed, thinking there was no saving her. Lucy rushed to pick up a book that had fallen to the floor, dusting each one off. Poor thing. She put them back in the bag. I stood up and squatted next to Lucy. The books are happy to be treated with care. These were given to me by Grandpa. From Grandpa? Grandpa's not around anymore, but I thought he'd forgive me if I had to give them away today. But since Anne doesn't want them, would you like them, Lucy? Lucy looked up. Yes. I'll treasure them. And smiled happily. That's good. They are all first editions, some worth more than $10,000 each. The one most startled by my words was Anne. Eh? Really? I'll take those books then. You said you'd give them to me, right? As Anne stood up, Mike sighed. He grabbed her shoulder and made her sit again. You never learn. These are now Lucy's. Mike, please. Convince Kate. I really have no money. I don't care. But I'll pay for what we had here. Mike took the check and my bag. Let's go, he said to us. Then, turning back to Anne. I'll say this one more time, if you harass my wife or daughter again, I will indeed sue you. We apologized to the cafe staff for the disturbance and left. Mike had managed to return from his trip by pushing through the arrangements. The mobile phone Lucy had been fiddling with was used to stay in touch with Mike. Since then, and has not shown her face to Lucy or me. However, she did visit Mike once after he returned from his business trip. She was evicted from her apartment because she couldn't pay the rent. She showed up in dirty clothes with 2 bags, begging for help with only $100 to her name. When Mike refused and told her to live more responsibly, she cursed him out before breaking down and crying like a child. Since that day, Lucy and I have been like real mother and daughter. She helps with preparing dinner and even with the laundry. It's not that she feels she has to help, but rather she enjoys spending time with me. And most importantly, we talk a lot more. Before you married Dad, you came to visit me when I was sick, remember? Yes. I had heard about Lucy, but that was the first time we actually met. Mom was really worried about me that day, so kind. I thought it would be nice if she could be my mom. So why didn't you warm up to me sooner? I asked, and it seems she was afraid that it would be harder to part if she got taken back by Anne. You didn't have to worry about that. I'm your mom, and I'll always protect you. I promised. From now on, feel free to talk to me and rely on me for anything. Yes. My daughter's cheerful response filled me with joy. Being broke and useless is grounds for divorce. So said Matthew as he left the divorce papers on the table and walked out. I was left staring at those papers, dumbfounded, on my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while. But, to think he was actually cheating. And he's leaving me because I'm useless and can't earn money while hospitalized and because Alyson's pregnant? Mom? Startled, I looked up to find my precious son Harlan and my dad standing there. My dad looked at what I was holding and frowned. What are you going to do? There's only one thing to do. With some persuasion, I managed an early discharge and headed to the bank where Matthew works. My dad, who drove me there, cheered me on. You can do it. Then he dropped me off in front of the bank and drove away. As I entered the bank, Matthew, noticing me, frowned. Coincidentally, there were no other customers in front of Matthew. I approached him directly. I'm closing all the company accounts. What? Let's show him whose daughter he's angered. While Matthew turned pale, I couldn't help but smirk. I am Sabrina. A 32-year-old corporate executive and mother of 1. I have a 7-year-old son named Harlan and my husband's name is Matthew. Matthew and I met at a party thrown by mutual friends during our college days. Back then, we had no interest in each other and merely exchanged contact information. Hey, weren't you at that party? Sabrina, right? Oh, Matthew? The following year, by coincidence, I used the bank where he worked and we reconnected. That led to us keeping in touch regularly and eventually started dating. After I got pregnant with Harlan, we got married. Matthew was known for his serious and meticulous work. which made my friends envy that I had him as my husband. I, too, was happy to have married him. Mom, why does this become this? Hold on a sec. I don't know that much myself, so I'll look into it. Okay. Harlan, perhaps inheriting traits from Matthew, is studious and curious. He's always asking questions, which keeps me on my toes with my own studies. What's this? Why? Surprisingly, Harlan's admiration is not for Matthew but for my dad. My mother passed away from illness, and my dad, despite his busy work life, raised me as a single parent. I'm sorry, but it's hard to get along with your dad. Well, it can't be helped, but don't say that to him. He's quite sensitive about it. No way, I could. My dad is a kind man but looks intimidating and somewhat scary. Matthew is also not comfortable around him due to his appearance. My dad, aware of this, has always tried not to interfere too much. Thus, our life was peaceful at the beginning, a life that seemed full of promise. But that changed drastically after we got married. Hey! Where did you put my mobile phone? Don't say it like I'm responsible for it. Isn't it still on the charger? Right after waking up, Matthew would ask grumpily. Indeed, his mobile phone was where he left it charging the night before. No apologies or thanks from him, just a click of his tongue, which irritated me. Matthew changed after we got married. And whenever he had the chance, he would say this. I'm an elite banker. Thanks to me, you're living a comfortable life. Yet Matthew doesn't contribute financially at home. He spends his entire salary on himself, yet acts as if he's supporting the household. In reality, I'm the one supporting our family. I pay for all the utilities and groceries. Hey! What's with these new clothes? They're for Harlan. He's outgrown his old ones. Don't spend my money on luxuries. I'm paying with my own salary. I don't even have access to your account. Yet, if I take Harlan out for a meal or buy new clothes, he immediately complains. He seems to dislike any form of luxury, no matter how small. On the other hand, my dad is the type of person who's willing to spend money for our sake. The apartment you're in now is too small, right? That's why I bought the condo you and Matthew wanted to live in. And it's not far from my place, so I could be close with you guys. He said, laughing, and gave us the top floor as a gift. And to be there for us in times of need, he lives on a different floor in the same building. Mom, can I go to Grandpa's? Of course, but just because it's the same building doesn't mean you can stay out late. Make sure you come back before it gets dark. Okay. It might be natural for Harlan to be closer to his grandfather than his father, Matthew. Whenever he has the chance, Harlan goes to see my dad. Where's Harlan? At Dad's place. Is that so? Matthew never complains about my dad to him directly. And it seems he's careful not to say too much around Harlan, fearing he might tell my dad. It's just me he's bold with. Certainly, I keep quiet not to trouble my dad. Well, if it's just complaints, I can ignore them. That's how lightly I thought of it as. And so unlike my dad, Matthew doesn't participate in childcare at all. I've been called out by Alyson, so I'm heading out. What? Again? And it's Matthew's childhood friend Alyson who's stealing away his time from childcare. I dislike her, more than just being uncomfortable around her. Matthew and I are like siblings. So please don't misunderstand. Every time she meets me, she would say something like that. Yet, she always tries to assert her dominance. Matthew used to be. As if she knows Matthew better than I do, which is just annoying. Valeria, Matthew's mother-in-law, also dotes on Alyson, which complicates things further. Why did Matthew choose such a woman instead of Alyson? He should have married Alyson. When called to my in-laws, Valeria made sure to say such things loud enough for me to hear. John, my father-in-law, always scolds her for it, but she doesn't seem to care. Alyson claims to be a natural airhead. I'm just a natural airhead, that's why I rely on Matthew so much. I don't mean to make Sabrina uncomfortable. This might be okay if she were younger. But she's 28, not exactly young. It's time she acted her age. The reason she and Matthew didn't end up together is because of John. I don't want such a woman even as an in-law. If it really comes down to it, I'll divorce you. Alyson can hardly be called as a good person. She's notorious for playing around with men and doesn't work either. Whatever she wants, she gets Matthew to buy for her. John despises Alyson and strongly opposed their relationship. I could never understand why Valeria adores Alyson so much. I'm sorry for my wife's behavior. It's not something you should apologize for, John. Matthew too. To not defend his wife from such remarks, and instead, being friendly with such a woman. True to John's words, no matter what Valeria says about me, Matthew never defends me. Sometimes, he even laughs. Why do you say those things, Grandma? If Mom and Dad hadn't met, I wouldn't be born. Does that mean I'm an unwanted child to you, Grandma? No, that's not true at all. Harlan always stands up for me in place of Matthew. Harlan may not understand how children are made, but he knows they can't be born without both parents. Valeria adores her brilliant grandson, so she refrains from making such remarks in front of Harlan. In that aspect, Valeria and Matthew are very alike, making it seem they really are related. I have plans to drink with Alyson tonight, so I'll be home late. Oh, really? Gradually, I started to wonder if Matthew was necessary for us at all. And I began preparing for divorce. Harlan seemed to sense something too. If there's anything I can help with, just let me know, he said, showing concern for me. Then, I was summoned by Valeria. I really didn't want to go, but she kept calling persistently enough that it would affect my work if I didn't show up. John is away on business, so there's no one to carry heavy things. Can you buy some rice? Apparently, John was on a business trip. I wanted to tell her to just order it online, but saying that would clearly lead to an argument. After being tasked with carrying heavy items after work, I was exhausted. As I was heading back to the condo in a daze, my body was thrown by a car. It seems a car that ran a red light hit me. The driver who hit you fled the scene, and we're currently investigating. I was informed while lying in a hospital bed. For now, I left Harlan in my father's care and decided to stay in the hospital for a while. I broke my arm, so I couldn't work properly in this state. When I was being worried about such things, my dad scolded me. First, worry about your own health. Harlan, my father, and John, who came back in a hurry after hearing about the accident, visited me frequently, but Matthew and Valeria did not visit me at all. Well, that was within my expectations. Coming in. What? So, I was surprised when Matthew showed up in my hospital room. Sign this. Matthew presented me with divorce papers. Already signed by him, with Valeria's name as a witness. With that arm, you won't be able to work. Now that you can't make money, you're useless to me. What is that supposed to mean? And besides, Alyson is pregnant with my child. My thoughts froze at those words. Alyson is pregnant with Matthew's child. I'm going to marry Alyson. So just sign this quickly. Saying that, Matthew turned his back on me. As if I was of no further use to him. Being broke and useless is grounds for divorce, Matthew said as he left the divorce papers on the table and walked out. I was left staring at those papers, dumbfounded, on my hospital bed. I had my suspicions for a while. But, to think he was actually cheating. And he's leaving me because I'm useless and can't earn money while hospitalized and because Alyson's pregnant? Mom? Startled, I looked up to find my precious son Harlan and my dad standing there. My dad looked at what I was holding and frowned. What are you going to do? There's only one thing to do, I answered while looking straight at my dad. My dad nodded in agreement. Well then, let's fight back. With some persuasion, I managed an early discharge and headed to the bank where Matthew works. My dad, who drove me there, cheered me on. "You can do it." Then he dropped me off in front of the bank and drove away. As I entered the bank, Matthew, noticing me, frowned. Coincidentally, there were no other customers in front of Matthew. I approached him directly. "I'm closing all the company accounts." "What?" Matthew's expression clearly said, "What are you talking about?" Without taking a number, I stood directly at the counter, noticing a few annoyed glances from others. "Oh, excuse me. Maybe you didn't understand without the company name." "What are you?" "I'm Sabrina Gibney. I recently took over my father and became the CEO. The company is Gibney Corporation." "What the?" Gibney Corporation is an IT company my father founded, now employing 1,900 staffs, and is quite well known in this area and within the industry due to its rapid growth in one generation. That's why Matthew was so surprised. "That's a lie, right? You're just trying to get back at me. If you think so, why don't you check?" Matthew started checking something immediately at my words. While he was busy, I looked around. Having mentioned the company name, the surrounding people were now paying attention to us. "Oh my God, what? No way!" It seemed he had confirmed it. Matthew looked up at me hesitantly. "You're really from that Gibney Corporation?" Let's show him whose daughter he has angered. Contrary to Matthew's pale face, I smirked unpleasantly. "That's right, so please proceed with the cancellation quickly." "Wait, if you cancel all at once like this." "By the way, my father is quite angry about this matter as well. Quickly pack your things and leave the apartment." "What? Why should I be the one to leave?" It seems Matthew had forgotten that the apartment was purchased by my father, and the ownership was in my father's name. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought a listen-in while I was hospitalized and still be living there. "Forgot? That apartment was bought by my father, the former president. You haven't contributed any money, let alone for living expenses. You've been spending everything on your childhood friend and mistress, Alyson. In fact, you've been living on my salary. Who do you think has been supporting your lifestyle?" "Well, about that." "And now, because she's pregnant, you expect me to hand over the apartment to you and your mistress? How much more do you intend to insult me?" I made sure to speak loudly enough for those around to hear. And of course, Matthew was flustered. After all, he's known for being serious. That he, of all people, wouldn't contribute financially at home and was cheating with a childhood friend. The looks we received from those around us turned cold. "Is that true?" "What?" The one who approached me was Ogden, the branch manager of this bank. He had been here for a while, listening to our conversation. "I believe we need to have a detailed discussion. I am very sorry for the inconvenience caused by our bank employee." And with that, Ogden offered a deep apology. Following this, I was taken to the back to discuss further with Matthew, Ogden, and myself. There, I explained the situation to Ogden in detail. "I am terribly sorry for the trouble our employee has caused." Ogden sighed deeply and apologized again. Next to him, Matthew sat looking displeased, and to that, Ogden forcibly grabbed his head to make him apologize. "I understand your feelings, Sabrina. It's natural not to want to entrust your money to a bank that employs such people. If you're considering closing your account, we can arrange that. I am no longer his wife. If you accept one condition, I might reconsider closing the account." The two of them looked up hopefully at my words. It was a good deal for Ogden, but the worst possible condition for Matthew. "If you fire Matthew here, I would like to continue my contract with this bank." "What?" "Of course. We were actually planning to let him go." It seemed Ogden had already intended to do so. Matthew, initially confused, gradually turned red in the face. As he was about to say something. "Excuse me, but Sabrina's father has arrived." Another bank employee approached us. I had asked Ogden to let him in, thwarting Matthew, who, frustrated, closed his mouth. Why do I have to be here? What? Mom? Sorry for making you wait. Dad entered, firmly holding Valeria's arm. Valeria, looking displeased, glared at me upon seeing me. This is your doing. What are you trying to accomplish? I'll never forgive you for treating your mother-in-law like this. Quiet. As Valeria began to shout, my dad fiercely scolded her. Giving an even more intimidating look, he managed to silence them. I know you've been harassing my daughter. Calling her for trivial tasks, making her carry heavy things. Despite this, instead of showing gratitude, you prefer to listen and you made sure my daughter heard it. And Matthew, far from defending, laughed, and even Harlan had to step in to protect her. My dad's angry voice echoed through the bank. Matthew tried to intervene but remained silent under my dad's stern gaze. And I'm aware that Alyson is the one who hit Sabrina. That woman has already been arrested by the police. Could Alyson really have done such a thing? Why are you surprised? You're the mastermind. My dad scolded at her even more. Meanwhile, Matthew, seemingly unaware, froze in shock. What? You both are the worst. Sabrina, let's go. Yes. Prompted by my dad, we headed outside. Ogden followed, apologizing repeatedly. Thinking I might continue the contract with Ogden in charge, we heard Matthew and Valeria arguing loudly behind us. It seemed they were blaming each other. Their voices could be heard outside, and the customers and bank employees who were present whispered that what they had heard was true. Just as planned. Yes. They reacted just as we expected, which helped. Our plan had gone smoothly, and we left the bank laughing confidently. As a result, Matthew was indeed fired. Thanks to the police conducting a thorough investigation, Alyson received a prison sentence. As for Valeria, she was forced to divorce John after it was discovered she had instigated Alyson to run me over in an attempt to get rid of me. Valeria was also taken into custody by the police. Welcome back, Mom, Grandpa. I'm home. Thank you for looking after Harlan, John. No problem. Seems like you've settled everything at the bank. After cornering Matthew and his accomplices at the bank, I went to pick up Harlan, whom I had left with John. John had helped a lot this time too. He found evidence that Valeria was instigating Alyson and discovered notes about their plan to eliminate me, which he handed over to the police. When I thanked him for everything, John said with a smile, "You did great." Since then, my days have become busier than ever. Being busy as a next-in-line president and a board member already, becoming president has added even more responsibility on me due to Matthew. And as for my dad, he started a new company. I've always wanted to start a new company, he said, pushing the presidency onto me, eager to show Matthew up. Because of that, both my father and I became busy, so John has been looking after Harlan. Apparently, John's business trip was forced upon him because Valeria was having an affair with his boss. He took early retirement and moved into a vacant apartment in our building. I'm currently studying about remote work. Planning to eventually entrust him with work, I've sent someone knowledgeable his way. He seems very capable, so I'd like him to excel in my new company. It seems my dad and John got along very well after this incident, often visiting each other's apartments to drink and chat. On the other hand, Matthew, having been driven out, returned to his empty family home. Unable to find employment at any bank with rumors spread by my dad and I everywhere, he was left unemployable, forced to pay me compensation through debts. Now, spending his days tirelessly working part-time jobs, he came crying to us, but we collectively ignored him. Once rumored to be on the fast track to becoming a branch manager, he has fallen far. When I grow up, I want to be like Grandpa. Harlan has come to respect my dad even more after this incident. Seeing him as a hero for rescuing us from the malicious acts of Matthew and Valeria. Would you take over for Grandpa someday? Yes. Hearing Harlan's willingness to follow in his footsteps, my dad was overjoyed. Determined not to be outdone by my father, I resolved to work even harder. Eventually, both my company and my father's company settled down. "Oh, welcome home, Mom." "Welcome back, looks like you worked hard." When I come home exhausted, I find John had already prepared dinner for us. "I helped today too." "Really? That's great, Harlan. I'm looking forward to dinner." Praising Harlan's effort with a smile, my dad also returned home late. Then, the four of us sat around the dining table, chatting and eating dinner together. In stark contrast to us, Matthew and his accomplices were scattered. Matthew piled up debts upon debts, eventually becoming indebted to a loan shark. And I heard rumors he was put on a ship. Matthew's family home was sold to pay off his debts, and Valeria, now without a place to go, was spotted living under a bridge by an acquaintance. By the way, I received an apology letter from Alyson's parents. They're good people, I hope you'll read it. If you say so, John. According to the letter from Alyson's parents, she gave birth in prison. They took the child in, and after Alyson's release, they moved away to ensure she wouldn't rely on them. The letter contained deep apologies to me. Alyson's parents seem like very good people. I sincerely hope the child grows up to resemble their grandparents rather than their parents. Nonetheless, Alyson too has lost a place to return to. I hope she reflects on her sins in her solitude. Time passed by and it had been 10 years since the divorce. We've grown without being troubled by Matthew. Did I even have a dad? Apparently, he vaguely remembers Matthew's existence but considers irrelevant to his life. And I too have completely forgotten about his existence. I've decided to take over Grandpa's company after all. If that's what you've decided, I won't object. Harlan chose to inherit my dad's company, which was originally a company making toys. Starting as an ordinary employee, Harlan is valued for his constant flow of ideas. Maybe it's time to leave the company in Harlan's hands. My dad would say so in a laugh. Once he hands over the company to Harlan, he plans to live a quiet life in the countryside. I'm also finding a successor and teaching them my job earnestly. Once they've grown enough, I too might consider early retirement and start a new path. With that thought of future in mind, I will continue to work as the CEO. Our son is going to live with you, Mom. Even if he's sick, being with your grandchild every day is a blessing, right? The voice of my son on the phone dripped with malice, as if mocking me. I hugged my grandson tightly, covering his ears so he wouldn't hear that voice. My grandson, who just turned 7, was recently taken to the hospital. There, he was diagnosed with a certain illness, and my son and his wife left him at my house. Coming home from work, I found my grandson sitting dejectedly at the entrance. My heart nearly leaped out of my chest. He told me himself, "I was abandoned by Mom and Dad because I'm sick." I wish they could understand how I felt. I immediately called my son. What followed was a brazen declaration of abandonment. My daughter-in-law, likely beside my son, let out a vulgar laugh, saying, "We don't want to catch his illness. Let the short-lived elderly take care of him." She hurled insults worse than my son's and cut off the call with a harsh laugh. The phone, abruptly disconnected, never connected again. Looking at my trembling grandson in my arms, I made up my mind. I will raise him. First of all, my name is Frida. I'm 57 and a company employee. I married my husband at 22 and gave birth to our son, Morty, the following year. My husband adored Morty, and the three of us lived happily together. He's so adorable. I'm so happy such a cute child was born to us, my husband would say, holding Morty and beaming with joy. But that happiness didn't last long. When Morty was 2, my husband suddenly fell ill and passed away. I was heartbroken, but I had no time to grieve. I had to raise Morty alone. From then on, I worked tirelessly, raising Morty as a single mother. I never remarried. Luckily, I had been a full-time employee since before marriage, so I managed to raise Morty without financial struggles. Now Morty is 34. He works as a company employee in a general business, but Morty has always been somewhat flighty and easily influenced. He got his current job because a college senior suggested it, and he just went along with it. When Morty was 26, he married a woman his age named Maya. Maya was very strong-willed, and I never had a good impression of her even during their dating days. For instance, Maya would frequently visit our house but never once said hello or goodbye. I gently brought this up to Maya at one point. "Maya, it's great you come to visit, but I'd appreciate it if you'd say hello when you arrive." Maya reacted defiantly, visibly annoyed. "What? You don't have the right to tell me what to do. I'm a guest here. I'm doing you a favor by visiting. It's really unpleasant to be told such arbitrary things." I was stunned by her brash response. Morty, on his part, would say things like, "Mom, don't be so stiff." I thought it was common sense to greet when visiting someone's home, but it seemed not to apply to Maya. Morty appeared completely under the thumb of the assertive Maya. After Maya left, I reiterated my point to Morty, but just let it go. He just brushed it off. Incidents like these often happened, so I didn't have a good impression of Maya. Of course, I repeatedly told Morty to be more responsible. The couple rented an apartment after their marriage and started living near our house. The following year, they had their first son, Darren. My first grandchild. Children grow up so fast, and in no time, Darren turned 7. One day, as I was returning from work and my house came into view, I noticed someone sitting at the entrance. Who could that be? As I got closer, I realized it was Darren. Having been busy with work recently and not seeing my son's family or Darren, I was both surprised and overjoyed to see him after so long. "Darren! It's been a while. What are you doing here?" When I called out to him, Darren slowly lifted his face to meet my eyes. "Grandma." Seeing Darren's face after such a long time, I was lost for words. His face had white, patchy areas, and his eyes were swollen red as if he had been crying. I tried to remain as calm as possible and invited Darren inside. "And? Darren, what happened? Can you tell Grandma about it?" I gently asked him. He nodded slowly and began to speak in bits and pieces. "Well, I got a skin disease. I forgot its name because it was complicated, but it's a rare disease." Seeing young Darren's lips quiver and his face turn pale, my heart ached. "A rare disease? Is that really what you were told?" "Yes, Mom and Dad said that. Ever since I got this disease, they stopped looking at my face. And today, they brought me here to Grandma's house and told me to wait for you, and then they went away." Shocked by Darren's story, I hurriedly called Morty. To prevent Darren from hearing the conversation, I asked him to stay in the living room and drink juice while I moved to another room. "Morty! I heard from Darren. How could you leave him at our doorstep without telling me anything?" Mom, you're back. Yeah, Darren has this rare disease called pityriasis simplex. It's really troublesome. Pityriasis simplex. I remembered hearing that name before. I had seen a feature on it on TV once. Wasn't it just white spots? White spots are common in children and not a rare disease. Is it really a rare disease? The dermatologist said it's pityriasis simplex. It's a complicated name, so it must be rare, right? So, since we could catch it too, Maya suggested you should raise him, and I agreed. So, Mom, please take care of Darren for us. Thanks. What? You call yourselves parents? That's so irresponsible. I shouted in anger at Morty's outrageous statement. Then Maya took over the call, and her shrill voice echoed. "Morty and I are still young and have our lives ahead of us. It would be terrible to catch such a creepy skin disease. So let the short-lived elderly take care of him. Bye." With that unilateral shout, the call was disconnected. Stunned, I quickly took out a book from the bookshelf that listed various diseases and their treatments and looked up pityriasis simplex. Thank goodness. It's just white spots. He'll be fine. The research confirmed that pityriasis simplex was not a rare disease and, with proper treatment, could be cured in most cases. I felt relieved and simultaneously furious at my selfish son and daughter-in-law. I realized they had abandoned Darren at our house, assuming it was a rare disease from its complicated name. How selfish of them. I will definitely raise Darren well. I muttered with determination and returned to the living room. I smiled at Darren, who looked anxious. Darren, don't worry. Your illness is curable. Let's go to the hospital together tomorrow. Really? Darren, thinking it was incurable, lit up. Yes, it's not a rare disease, so don't worry. And Darren, from today, you'll live with Grandma. It's okay. I'll make sure you're happy. Let's live together happily. Darren looked a bit bewildered, but then nodded. Thank you, Grandma. And smiled. Time passed, and 9 years went by. I turned 66, and Darren became 16. During these 9 years, I couldn't make any contact with my son and his wife. Darren, in his teenage years, didn't talk much lately but grew up kind, occasionally cooking meals. Now retired, I support Darren with my pension and retirement funds. Then one day, my son and his wife, who disappeared 9 years ago, suddenly appeared at our home. What do you want now, after all this time? I coldly confronted them at the entrance. How dare they show their faces after not contacting us for 9 years? Hey, we saw you on TV the other day. Surprised us. Darren is amazing. Earning so much money at his age, huh? Apparently, they had seen a recent TV interview, Teenage Genius Inventor. Maya, standing next to Morty, also chimed in with a sneer. Getting a patent and all, that's really amazing. You must be so rich now, huh? Indeed, Darren was skilled at inventing, and he had recently obtained a patent. It was clear from their attitude that Morty and Maya believed Darren was making money from his patent and had come here today with that in mind. They hadn't expressed any concern for Darren, they only talked about him becoming rich. They're still the worst couple. Then Darren appeared behind me. He must have heard our conversation. Hey Darren. We've come to take you back. A son is a son, even if he suffers from an illness. Let's live together again with your dad and mom. Morty's exaggerated behavior was almost laughable. To this, Darren responded coldly. Huh? Who the heck are you? Darren, now a high school student, was old enough to understand the situation. He realized from the conversation that his parents were after money, and felt no attachment to them, having been abandoned. Morty and Maya seemed taken aback by Darren's indifferent attitude, but quickly regained composure and started talking fluently. Darren is sick, so his life will be tough. That's why Maya and I will support him. Morty declared. What? After you abandoned me, you have the nerve to act all fatherly now? Don't pretend to be a dad. Darren, having listened to them for a while, clicked his tongue in disgust and scoffed. I was also astonished that they still mistakenly thought Darren had a rare disease. Darren's face had completely healed. Morty, Maya, you've been mistaken all along. Darren doesn't have a rare disease. Pityriasis simplex is just white spots, common in children. Darren completely recovered in about a year. Stunned by my explanation, Morty suddenly changed his attitude and shouted. We've been tricked. Screw you. Why didn't you tell us something so important? Maya followed suit. We were kidnapped by an old woman. You've taken our child for 9 years. Give back our child, Frida, you old kidnapper. And cursed at me. Ignoring their rants, Darren quickly took out his mobile phone and called the police. The police are on their way. And just so you know, getting a patent doesn't mean you become rich instantly. You need companies to use the technology, and only then do you get patent fees. It's not some epic-making discovery, nor is it a widely used patent, so it's just a dream to be filthy rich. The money I've received so far has all gone to materials. So, I don't have any money. After Darren explained calmly, Morty and Maya turned red with anger, screaming. What the hell? Then why did you call us here? Seeing their reaction, Darren sighed. I don't know. You came here on your own, so don't get angry at us. Just go home. Seeing Darren laugh, Morty shouted. Don't you get smart with me. His fist was clenched, ready to lash out at Darren, so I instinctively jumped forward to intervene. Just as Morty was about to swing at me, a loud male voice rang out. Stop it! A police officer was outside the window. He had seen Morty about to hit Darren through the curtain and acted quickly. While his shout startled Morty, another officer quietly entered from the entrance, stepping between us and Morty. Morty waved his open hand, feigning innocence. He then sneered at Darren. You might be an inventor or whatever, but don't get cocky. Live with that old woman for the rest of your life. With that parting shot, he left. The police asked if we were okay, and we said yes. After explaining the situation, we were advised not to let my son and his wife into our home again, and I nodded in agreement. The police reassured us they would help if needed, leaving me relieved. After the police left, I asked Darren. Are you okay? Concerned about his mental state. I knew he must be hurt, even if he acted tough, after being treated that way by his biological parents. However, Darren admitted. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't shocked. I knew my parents were the worst for abandoning me without understanding my illness. But I didn't expect them to be that stupid, thinking I'm rich just because of a patent. All those nice words, thinking I'd agree to live with them. He sighed deeply, clearly displeased, and ruffled his hair. Then he looked down at me, smiling. But Grandma, why did you try to protect me when I was about to get hit? I'm 16 now, and I'm bigger than you. I don't need protection. He asked me as if he was dumbfounded, which left me dumbfounded. What are you talking about? No matter how old they get, you want to protect your kids. Their size doesn't matter. Darren groaned softly, then turned away. I'd hate it more if you got hurt. He said gruffly, heading to his room. It seemed he was worried about me. I felt happy, realizing how kind Darren had grown. After that, I quickly contacted a certain person. A few days later, I went to the house where my son and his wife currently lived, accompanied by a certain person. When I rang the doorbell, Morty opened the door lazily and was shocked to see me and the person beside me. Lean! Why? The person next to me was Lean, Morty's friend. Morty's voice startled Maya, who also came from the back. Lean! Her face turning pale. Ignoring me, the couple was visibly shaken by Lean's arrival. Long time no see, Morty, Maya. Lean greeted them, and Morty, looking agitated. How did you find this place? He asked. I answered his question. When you came to our house the other day, you mentioned to Darren that you now live in a single-family home in this town. I didn't miss that. But how did you find this specific house with just the town's name? We didn't give you any detailed address. Morty exclaimed in panic. That's true, knowing just the town's name wouldn't be enough to find your address, so I hired a detective to focus on this town. A detective? Yes, and it didn't take long for them to find you. Then, I contacted Lean and we decided to come see you together today. Using a detective is cheating. That's no different from stalking. Lean glared at Morty. I've got nothing to say to fraudsters. Anyway, Morty, Maya, return the money I lent you. Lean's stern voice filled the room, causing the couple to tremble. Lean, a friend of Morty's, had lent them money. I only found out about this after my son and his wife had disappeared for some time. Lean came to my house to consult about lending them money and not being able to contact them anymore. He came all the way to visit me, wondering if they might have returned to a parent's house due to financial struggles so bad that they had to run away to avoid paying him back, and asked me to let him know if I ever found out their whereabouts. You too told Lean that Darren had a rare disease and you were in a tight spot financially, and got $5,000 from him by playing on his sympathy. My words made my son and his wife look down, trembling. It wasn't just Lean, you did the same thing with others, borrowing money here and there. Then, when repayment became difficult, you abandoned Darren at our house and disappeared without paying back anyone, exploiting people's kindness for your own gain. You're the lowest of the low. No. But we really thought Darren had a rare disease. Yes, we really did. That's why we borrowed the money. Frustrated with their excuses, I shouted. What are you talking about? Even if you thought so, you never treated Darren's condition. You took him to a dermatologist once and then neglected him, not spending a dime on his treatment. So where's the money you borrowed from your friends? Do you have it with you if you didn't use it for treatment costs? Of course, you don't. You probably squandered it on yourselves. As parents and human beings, you're the absolute worst. Shame on you. Ugh. They fell silent. The real reason you left Darren at my house wasn't because you were afraid of his disease spreading, it was to evade the debts you owed. Months before abandoning Darren, you frequently went on trips and started wearing only branded items, didn't you? No, but it's true that we didn't want to be around Darren because his disease was creepy. Even at this point, they still tried to justify. And with despicable excuses, too. Sighing deeply. Darren is fortunate not to have grown up with parents like you. He might have ended up with a twisted personality because of you. I'm so glad he has grown into a kind and admirable young man. I said. My son and his wife made sullen faces, not seeming convinced. Lean said sternly to the two. I have a good idea who else you've defrauded, so I'm planning to contact them and start a class action lawsuit. You better be prepared. A lawsuit? Wait a minute. Isn't that a bit too drastic? Too drastic? Not at all. Unless you can repay right now all the money you borrowed from me and others, which I guess you've already spent, right? Lean pressed. My son and his wife were speechless. I never imagined being betrayed by a longtime friend like you, Morty. I became distrustful of people for a while after you two disappeared. I will never forgive you. Lean said, glaring at them with hatred. I told my son and his wife. Don't worry about Darren. He's a high school student now, capable of making his own decisions. Please don't contact him anymore. I was firm in cutting ties with them. Months later, despite being threatened, Morty and his wife still hadn't repaid the money. They were sued in a class action by the people they owed. Though each person was owed less than $10,000, the total was overwhelming for them. They ended up selling the house they had bought just a few years prior. But because they had a mortgage, most of the proceeds went to paying that off, and the little that was left went towards the lawsuit settlement. Even though it was their most valuable asset, I couldn't believe they had to sell their house. It turned out they sold the house intending to move back into mine. I learned this sometime after the lawsuit, when I got a phone call from an enraged Morty. Mom! What the hell? Our house is gone. What's going on? What do you mean? As the for sale sign says, I sold the house and land. It's quite obvious, isn't it? Indeed, I had decided to sell the house and land even before they faced the lawsuit. Real estate agents said that vacant houses are hard to sell, and that it was better to demolish and sell the land. Following their advice, I demolished the house and quickly sold the land due to its good location. The money went towards moving with Darren. Actually, Darren was attending a high school quite far away, and commuting from the old house was quite the journey. So we moved closer to his school for a shorter commute. When I explained this, Morty started shouting. What? Where are you living now? We have nowhere to live since we sold our house. Tell me your address, we'll live with you. There's no way I'll tell you. One reason I sold the house and land was to cut ties with you. I won't tell you where we live, and I'm blocking your number, so don't contact us ever again. No. No way. That's too harsh. Morty was stunned, and behind him, Maya's despairing scream could be heard. The ones who are truly terrible are you too. You don't seem to be remorseful at all, but you should reflect on your actions and attitudes. The last thing I can say to you as a parent is to learn to introspect and repent. Goodbye, I said and ended the call, setting it to block further communication. My disillusioned son and his wife managed to find an old apartment to live in, but they seemed to be leading a tough life. Afterwards, I consulted with the lawyer hired by Lean and reconsidered my relationship with Darren. Until now, I had raised him as a grandmother. But Morty and his wife's presence was negatively influencing Darren. So, I considered legally becoming his parent through adoption. If it were recognized, I wouldn't have to divide my estate equally between Darren and Morty when I pass away. It would prevent Morty from running off with everything. I decided to check with Darren. Darren, I want to adopt you. Not just as a grandmother and grandson, but legally as mother and son. What do you think? I respect your feelings, of course. After a moment of silence. Yeah, I want to be your son officially. Darren smiled shyly and said. With Darren's consent, I contacted the family court with the help of a lawyer. Given Morty's terrible behavior, the adoption was relatively easily approved. Likely influenced by Darren being 16 years old. Darren and I successfully completed the adoption process. It was a joyous moment for me, especially knowing that he chose me over his biological parents even when he is still in his adolescence. Darren, talented in inventing, is always trying new things, and I'm living a peaceful life, enjoying watching him grow. My husband has a curious name, Wyatt. I had no way of knowing that my mother-in-law's fierce wishes were contained therein when I met him. I'm Ashley. Currently 44. This story dates back to when I was 32 and discovered the origin of Wyatt's name. We met in college. We're the same age. He went on to graduate school, but I got a job. Then, at 27, we felt it was time to settle down, so we got married. He was serious and very reserved. He's so earnest that instead of saying I like you or I like you a lot, he straightforwardly says I love you. That's one of the things I loved about him. However, he had one worry. When we went to his family home for a family meeting, his mother, Madison, told us, "We won't accept marriage unless we live together." Oh no. But we were having such quality time together. When I said this depressedly, he said, "Then how about a runaway marriage?" Wyatt made this astonishing proposal. He's so serious, he might just do it. No, Having been loved by my parents all my life, the thought of being estranged from them due to marriage troubled me. Well, I'll continue working, so I'll be out mostly. It should be fine. I agreed. Are you sure? I've already received the entire inheritance, so even a runaway marriage would be fine, he said with a straight face. His father had apparently passed away from illness when he was in high school. No, yeah, it's fine, I understand, for now at least. And so, with our marriage, living with my MIL began. Right with the cohabitation, the troubles started. Harassment towards me from day one. Isn't this supposed to start later on? We had a wedding reception at noon. We had moved our belongings the day before and started living in Wyatt's family home that day, but first, "Make dinner, please," was how it started. It's already past 6 p.m., and I'm tired from the wedding reception, but it's MIL's order, and I didn't want to start trouble on the first day. So, I'll make something from what's in the fridge, I said. There's nothing in it. She showed me the empty fridge. Start with the shopping, she said. And don't talk to me every now and then. You're the last person to come into this house, which means you're the lowest here. I don't want someone at the bottom to talk to me casually. Also, find the cooking utensils and seasonings yourself, and manage somehow. So, without even being told where the nearest supermarket was, I ended up having to whip up dinner from scratch. I managed to locate the nearest supermarket using car navigation, but searching for spices and pots took a while. Finally, dinner was ready. Done! I called out only for Madison. But she called Myatt, who was upstairs, and said, "A delicious meal is ready. Ashley's tired, so I made it." Hey, wait. From the first day, this marked the beginning of a thorny path. Madison's harassment continued daily. Even after returning from work, cooking was my duty. Laundry, of course, was too. And she'd claim to Wyatt that she did it all. Her constant remark was, "You're not even family to me. You come from another home, so you don't know the rules here. Look, even the way you fold this towel is wrong," she said. "Could you teach me how to fold it, then?" When I humbly asked, "Why should I teach someone who's not family, someone from another home?" she'd retort, hearing our loud exchange, "What's going on?" Wyatt would come down from upstairs to the washroom. I started to say Madison was complaining about the way I fold towels. But, "Wally, listen! She's complaining about the way we fold our towels." Hanging onto Wyatt's arm, she raised a cry that sounded almost like sobbing. Reflexively, I was surprised and let out a strange sound like what? Such hollowness and blatant lies. Enough, this person isn't worth talking about, I'll ask Wyatt directly. I thought, shaking with anger. Just show me how to fold the towel. My voice laced with irritation. Well, if you pick it up from the folded edge, it unfolds, so. I think the folded part should face this way. I never really paid attention. He demonstrated how he folded the towel and placed it. Make sure you follow that, Madison shouted. But I think you should fold it however you like. That's what I think, Wyatt said, then added. Let's not shout about something like this. With that, he left. Then, you just tried to snitch. You're not even a family member. She confronted me with a fierce look. Snitch. I hadn't heard that word since middle school. And honestly, this kind of bullying, no offense, felt like something a middle schooler would do. I held back my anger. Madison's unfairness was clear, so naturally, I told Wyatt about it. Got it. I'll talk to Mom, he said while folding the newspaper he was reading. I said, but then, she'll just say I'm snitching again. Feeling down. Seeing this, he replied, No, but I've realized that Mom has been a bit too harsh on you. And just held me in his arms. One day, amidst Madison's relentless harassment, an incident occurred. A call came from the neighborhood supermarket. Your mother tried to leave the store without paying for the items. Is that Madison a shoplifter? I was at work, but our home phone was set to forward calls to my mobile, so I was immediately aware of the incident. Of course, Wyatt was at work too. I left work early to pick her up. There in the supermarket manager's office sat the manager and Madison. Madison, what have you done? It was such a shock that I burst through the door and confronted her directly. She snapped back. You're not family, go away. She kicked a chair in front of her and turned her face away, spitting the words out. What? It was her usual line, but I was speechless that she'd use it even in such a situation. I was frozen in place. It's all recorded on the security camera, the manager then said. I realized then that I hadn't apologized to the manager. It's not like people practice how to react when a family member is caught shoplifting, so I hope he'd forgive the oversight. Apologizing was the priority. I'm very sorry for this, I said. Madison, upon seeing this, an apology from someone who's not family doesn't mean anything to me, she scoffed. This wasn't solving anything. And her attitude. Both the manager and I were stunned into silence. She kept sulking and turning her face away. 2 hours later, Wyatt arrived. Then, Wally. It's finally happened, because of this DIL. She's been bullying me, and the stress. Madison suddenly burst into tears. The manager and I were speechless at her sudden change in behavior. After 2 hours of silence, this was her reaction. I'm very sorry. We will pay double the cost of the items, Wyatt said, bowing his head. Shoplifting! This is unbelievable. And for 2 hours until you came, I was just being ignored. Actually, Wyatt stroked my back soothingly. This isn't her first time. What? Shoplifting is like a habit for her. It's happened before. And you didn't try to do something about it? Surely, as a family. Dad used to handle it before he fell ill. It stopped after he passed away, but it started again when you came. I couldn't quite understand the logic behind it. I didn't understand, but I can't stay silent anymore because she's accused me of you're not part of my family, go home, and you are bullying me. I'm sorry, but I'm going to fight back. He just kept silently stroking my back. 2 months later, another supermarket called about Madison shoplifted. Here we go. Thumbs up for a family member's crime is inappropriate, but I was actually waiting for this. Holding a certain document, I stood up from my desk at work. The supermarket where she was caught was quite far from our house. Ascending the stairs to the waiting room where she was. How did you even get to this store from so far away? I heard the manager's loud voice from the door. The previous manager was slim, but this one seemed stout just from his voice. As I opened the door, indeed, there stood a large, burly man. But her response was unexpected. By taxi. Taxi. You took a taxi all this way just to shoplift. The manager's voice, fitting his size, boomed again. I bet you've been banned from all the supermarkets in the neighborhood, haven't you? It was my turn to enter. This being the second time, I first apologized to the manager. Then turned to confront Madison. Madison, I do the shopping, don't I? You don't need to buy anything, so why go out to shoplift? As expected, Madison spat out her usual line. You're not family, go away. Here it comes. I've been waiting for this line. I decided to confront her with every single fact. Then I'll leave. And by the way, Wyatt won't come to pick you up either. At that, Madison exclaimed, what, surprised by the unexpected answer. I mean. I slammed the paper I had on the desk in front of her. You're not Wyatt's family, are you? What? Even the manager, with his large build, was taken aback. Do you understand this? I smile and say to the manager next to me. Her shoulders started to tremble. Since I was constantly being told you're not family, I thought I'd retort with I am a family member, look here, next time. So I fetched our vital records, and to my surprise, it turns out you're not the family member here. Her shoulders trembled more violently. Wyatt knows all about why it's come to this. He's on his way here today. He's coming, but he won't be picking you up anymore. What? Her face began to turn pale. Beside her. What does that mean? The manager interjected. Being a stranger and moreover dealing with a shoplifter, he probably didn't want to get involved, but even as an outsider, this not a family member though a mother was too intriguing to ignore. Well, you'll understand when Wyatt arrives, I declared confidently. On the evening I fetched the vital records and learned the truth, I asked Wyatt what it all meant. My birth mother was. That's when he revealed the truth to me. She passed away when I was in elementary school. The vital records corroborated this. And the name of Wyatt's deceased mother wasn't Madison, the woman living with us now. Why didn't you tell me? I had to ask, genuinely puzzled. I told you I inherited everything, right? I said that when we were talking about possibly having a runaway marriage, and I thought I had explained it then. Your words were far from enough. Typical of the reticent Wyatt. However, what he shared next was quite surprising. That too was about to be laid out before our eyes. As before, Wyatt arrived 2 hours late. I'm terribly sorry for this. He first apologized to the manager, Wally. In front of the vital records, Madison started to tremble. It's not true, you see. It is true, isn't it? She gasped and flinched. You know what I'm talking about. Wyatt let out a sigh. Then he began to explain again, intending Madison to hear as well. The most pitiful was the manager, forced to listen to the burdensome family issues of others after dealing with shoplifting, but he sat quietly and listened. The content was nightmarish, but no doubt intriguing. My birth mother passed away when I was in elementary school. As you can see from the house, we were wealthy, and we had a live-in housekeeper. That's her. She was the housekeeper. Her true identity revealed. She harassed my mom quite a bit. Perhaps she thought a child wouldn't understand, but I grew up witnessing it all. She constantly bullied Mom with "you're not family" and "you don't know the rules of this house because you come from another home," yet she never taught the rules. Mom was tormented by this until her death. From the first day of marriage, she was bullied relentlessly. When I was born, desperate for hope, she named me Wyatt, wishing me to be strong and brave. Wait a minute. Madison interrupted. I took care of you since you were in your first year of high school because Albert, before he passed, told me to look after Wyatt. I've been caring for you dearly ever since. Dad indeed mentioned she will be like a mother from now on before he passed. He also said my inheritance was partly as a caretaker's fee for you. The rest became mine. That's why I've been calling you Mom. But Dad knew you were bullying my real mom. I directly heard and saw him reprimanding you several times. Each time, you cried and claimed Mom was lying and belittling you. When Mom passed, Dad, already frail, regretted relying on you for the mansion and me. Before he died, he told me, avenge Samantha. Wyatt spoke calmly. To which, that's not true. That's not. Madison cried out. I raised you like a natural child. He responded. Like a natural child. He laughed. Wyatt, usually so reserved and not very expressive. It was the first time I saw him laugh in such a cold manner. While Mom was alive, you claimed her cooking as your own. After she passed, you bought deli items, claiming you made them. I remember you washing containers. Now, you claim Ashley's cooking as your own. How can you keep lying about something as obvious as who made the food? Is lying to your natural child a part of being a mother? The person we thought was Madison hunched over, trembling. Had she not realized we knew? Wyatt continued. When you said you wouldn't approve the marriage unless we lived with you, I seriously considered a runaway marriage. You probably thought, with Dad's small inheritance gone, you needed me as a new golden goose. From our perspective, you're a complete stranger. If the house was gone, so would you. But then Ashley agreed to live together. She was loved by her parents, and I, despite being served deli items, was grateful for your care from my first year of high school to grad school. Even if you were living off Dad's inheritance. Once married, Ashley was forced to cook and do laundry, and you claimed it was your work. You're not family. You come from another home, so you don't know our rules. You bullied her just like Mom, without teaching the house rules. Seeing this, I decided to corner you thoroughly. Dad's will stated she will be like a mother from now on and avenge Samantha. I found a way to fulfill these seemingly contradictory requests. From my first year of high school to grad school, 9 years. I've supported you financially, even lived with you after marriage, But today marks the end of those 9 years. Regardless of the circumstances, today ends my gratitude for you acting as a mother. And as for avenging, that starts today. From today, I'll no longer recognize you as family. Naturally, as a stranger, you'll also need to leave the house. Wait, just wait a minute, really. Dad never married you because of all this, Wyatt stated firmly. A moment of silence followed. Wyatt must have been carrying various burdens since Samantha's passing. Today, everything was about to change. But I couldn't let the pressure of this change defeat us, so I gave his back a firm pat. Hey. He turned around. Samantha might have been tormented by this person, I said, pointing again at the vital records. But I won't fall ill. I won't be brought down by this. And I'll make you happy, compensating for the loss of Samantha. Just leave it to me. Wyatt cracked a gentle smile, the kind I hadn't seen before. So, Madison, or rather the stranger she truly was, ended up taken away by the police, as no one would take her in. It seems she was detained for a while. Later, she did come back, begging to be let in, but Wyatt resolutely refused to open the door. Being a habitual shoplifter, with no nearby supermarkets left to use, Madison moved far away. We received a message from her about her move and sent her belongings, postage due, to a very distant place, 3 states away. Years passed since then. We now have 2 children, and our life is serene. The reason I'm recounting this story now is that yesterday Wyatt suddenly started speaking out of nowhere. By the way, he said, there was another reason behind my name. He prefaced. It's probably not a big deal. Then started his story. The year I was born, John Wayne passed away. Dad, a fan of westerns, wanted to name me John, but Mom, who had her quirks, didn't want to settle for just John. Instead, she thought of a western hero. Wyatt Earp! I burst out laughing. That must have been the main reason for the name. I just love this natural side of Wyatt. A quiet man doesn't have to be boring. With Wyatt and our children, our life ahead holds no tears. Only smiles for tomorrow. Once I nearly died, and now that I've managed to recover, I feel reborn. I'm starting a new life, and I don't want to take care of some old hag, he said coldly, despite Victor's recovery from his illness being a direct result of me becoming a donor. Looking back, I had never received a single word of gratitude from Victor. In the divorce papers mercilessly handed to me, Victor's signature was already there. Yet, I wasn't shocked, just irritated and anxious. Since he regained his mobility, Victor had been gallivanting around, and I had been harboring suspicions for some time. And now, I had fallen ill. I had stomach cancer. It was progressing slowly, so it was not critical, but I still had to start treatment with surgery and chemotherapy. Full of anxiety, I never imagined being pushed away like this. All my love and trust for Victor vanished in an instant. The hard part is, to Layla, he's undeniably her only dad. I felt guilty about becoming a single parent, but I just didn't have the energy to try and mend things with Victor now that my own battle with illness is beginning. I signed the divorce papers Victor brought and returned them to him. A month later, Victor, having left numerous unanswered calls, finally barged into my hospital room and blurted out something shocking. My name is Karina, a 29-year-old housewife. I had been happily living with Victor, a year my senior, and our 5-year-old daughter Layla for 7 years. Even after getting married, I continued working full-time until I went on maternity leave and then resigned from my job. I wanted to take my time raising Layla, but with the recession and Victor's salary alone not being enough, I had to return to work as soon as Layla could go to daycare. I got a job at an apparel company run by Victor's sister-in-law, Madison. They were looking for an office worker, and my previous experience made me a quick hire. Despite being family, I wasn't coddled, and the workplace was great with many colleagues who also had kids, making it easy to discuss childcare and take leave for emergencies. However, juggling work, household chores, and parenting was incredibly challenging. In the mornings, I prepared breakfast for Victor and Layla, made lunch for Victor, sent him off, dropped Layla at daycare, then headed to work. After work, I picked up Layla, shopped, cleaned, bathed Layla, and prepared dinner. Victor returned home just as Layla finished eating, and I prepared his meal while putting Layla to bed. Despite the hectic days, Victor wasn't very cooperative with housework or childcare. Even when Layla had a fever and I was busy caring for her, he'd casually ask, "Where's my breakfast?" If I asked him to shop for dinner because I had to work late, he'd complain, "I'm tired from work." Exhausted myself, I didn't have the energy to argue and ended up handling everything alone. Everything changed abruptly. Victor failed some tests at a company health check and was strongly advised to undergo further tests. He didn't want to since he felt fine, but started noticing odd symptoms like unexplained bruises and bleeding gums when brushing teeth. Ignoring it could lead to something serious. Considering Layla's future, I insisted on a thorough examination for Victor, which revealed he had leukemia.
"Why me?"
Victor was shocked, hearing the familiar name of the disease. But leukemia isn't incurable anymore. There are many cases of remission through chemotherapy and bone marrow transplants, and many patients return to normal life. I decided to support Victor, who was on the verge of despair, and accompany him through his treatment. He took a leave from work and was admitted to the hospital immediately. As for me, I had to juggle work, household chores, childcare, and now Victor's treatment. It was me who reached the limit first. The stress of hospitalization made Victor even more irritable towards me. I knew it was just him lashing out, but being busy with work, looking after Layla, doing household chores, and visiting the hospital in my spare time, I was honestly exhausted. It was then Madison, my sister-in-law, reached out to me. "Why don't you live with me? I can help with the household and taking care of Layla." Madison, the president of our company, was always on the front line of sales. She never left everything to her subordinates and always tried to catch the voices from the field. That's why her staff felt close to her and found it easy to exchange opinions. Knowing how busy she was, I felt guilty. "But Madison, you're busy too. If you collapse now, the one who suffers the most will be Layla, right? I'll help as much as I can with Victor's support. Rely on others when you can." Madison's firm words made me break down in tears. I was anxious about Victor, Layla's future, and my health, and Madison's presence and words were a great relief. Victor's parents had already passed away, and Madison lived alone in her parents' house. "It's too big for one person. I didn't want to sell it because of the memories with my parents, but I'm glad you two are here." Madison warmly welcomed me and Layla. Living with her was very comfortable. Our good relationship made it feel like I got a sister. Madison, who had been living alone for a long time, was good at household chores. Her active help made life easier than before. Then, there was a hope in Victor's treatment. I was a match as a bone marrow donor for him. After Victor's diagnosis, both Madison and I tested for bone marrow donation. The odds of finding a match are 1 in 4 for siblings, and 1 in several hundred to several thousand for unrelated individuals. We despaired when Madison wasn't a match, but I was, and Victor was overjoyed. I had to be hospitalized for a few days for the bone marrow extraction. During that time, of course, I had to take time off from work, and I couldn't take care of Layla. Both of these troubled Madison, but she didn't show any disgust. "I'm really grateful you're doing this for my brother. I'll take care of everything, so don't worry about anything but your own health," she said. With Madison's support, I underwent the surgery to donate bone marrow to Victor. He had to stay in a sterile room for a while post-surgery to avoid infections. I was discharged after a few days and, thanks to Madison's generosity, took a couple more days off before returning to work. The hematopoietic stem cells transplanted into Victor began to work properly, and after a few weeks, he was able to move to the general ward. When I took Layla to visit Victor in the general ward, and Nurse was in the room. Seeing Layla after a long time, Victor smiled happily. Victor is recovering well. He's young and strong, so he should be able to return to society soon if he continues to progress well. Thank you so much for everything. After expressing our gratitude, the nurse smiled and left the room. True to her words, Victor's condition stabilized, and a few months later, he was discharged. He still needed to rest at home for a while, so the four of us, including Madison, began living together at the in-laws' house. I once again took on the responsibilities of work, house chores, childcare, and caring for Victor, but it was less burdensome than before, thanks to Madison's presence. Madison, who can speak her mind clearly to Victor, told him, "You don't have to overdo it, but try doing some household chores as a part of your rehabilitation." Reluctantly, Victor began to help around the house. However, knowing his physical condition, I often ended up helping him, and eventually, Victor seemed to understand that if he did things slowly, I would come to help him, and he stopped doing even what he could. "I still feel tired." He said it as an excuse, not even trying to get up from the sofa. Once, when a delivery arrived while I was preparing dinner and I couldn't answer the door, I asked him to do it, only to receive a heavy sigh and a complaint. "You're rough with people, even though I'm supposed to be resting." I couldn't help but think, it's just this much. But Victor's pain was something only he could understand. So, believing his words, I tried to do as much as I could, even if it meant pushing myself. Perhaps because of overexerting myself again, my health had been deteriorating recently. Eating had become more difficult, and Madison even worried that I might have lost weight. By this time, Victor had recovered almost completely and had returned to work. Even though Victor no longer needed care, it didn't mean that household chores and childcare decreased. Even as my health worsened, Victor, perhaps reacting to having been told to rest, began going out alone more on his days off. He seemed not to notice my poor health and continued to neglect household chores. Once, when I asked where he was going and with whom, he became angry, saying, "I have my own private life too." Eventually, due to stress, I started experiencing painful stomach cramps and, encouraged by Madison, decided to undergo a medical checkup. With Victor having been seriously ill, I thought it was best to take early action for Layla's sake. The result was that I was diagnosed with stomach cancer. Fortunately, it seemed to be progressing slowly, but I still needed to be hospitalized for a while and undergo harsh chemotherapy. Layla looked anxious about my sudden hospitalization, but Victor was out and didn't stay by her side. Instead, Madison was with her. To not get in the way of my preparation for hospitalization, Madison took Layla out shopping. While I was silently getting ready, Victor came back. "What's this, going on a trip?" Victor asked nonchalantly. I snapped back, unable to contain my anger. "I have stomach cancer." "Stomach cancer? I've been feeling sick lately. I went for a checkup today, and that was the diagnosis. I need to be hospitalized." "Hospitalized? What about the housework? Will Madison handle it?" I was stunned that his first reaction to hearing about my hospitalization was not a concern for me. Indeed, the slow progression of my illness meant it wasn't a matter of immediate life or death. But still, facing a wife who was about to undergo harsh chemotherapy, his first concern was about the housework, which seemed incredibly insensitive. "Well, maybe this is for the best." "What? Divorce me?" "Ha!" His sudden demand left me bewildered. After all the dedication I gave him during his illness, he drastically changed his attitude the moment I fell ill. I was reborn after nearly dying and recovering. I don't want to spend my life taking care of an old hag. Victor's recovery was thanks to me being a donor. Yet I realized now he had never shown any gratitude. He callously presented me with divorce papers, already signed by him. "You don't even bother to put on makeup at home, you're no longer a woman to me. But I've been so busy with work, house chores, and childcare, I haven't had time for makeup. That's just an excuse. And now cancer? I can't deal with all this. Quickly write your name here." Victor yelled, and I was upset that he even said that to me. He shouted at me to sign the papers quickly. Despite the anxiety of my cancer diagnosis, I wasn't shocked. Ever since Victor regained his mobility, he had been out and about, and my mistrust had been growing. The fact that I was now sick meant all my love and trust for Victor had vanished. The hardest part was that Victor was undeniably Layla's only dad. I felt guilty about becoming a single parent, but with my upcoming battle with illness, I had no energy left to mend things with Victor. I signed the divorce papers he brought and returned them to him. "We're nothing more than strangers now," Victor said, smiling satisfactorily as he saw my signature. "Hey, are you done? Don't just barge in here. Because you're taking too long." Suddenly, a young woman I didn't know appeared at the entrance. She was dressed in a flashy one-piece dress and wore heavy makeup, looking beautiful. But upon closer inspection, I recognized her. "Are you the nurse from Victor's hospital stay?" She was Victor's attending nurse, although unrecognizable in her casual clothes. Apparently, she was his mistress. "Yeah. She supported me devotedly when I was sick, unlike you," Victor boasted proudly. Supporting a patient is a nurse's job. And it was absurd to compare her to me. "Just get out of this house. It's my family home, after all." He was brazen now. Though it was Victor's family home, it was under Madison's name now. But with the divorce, Madison and I were no longer related. The thought of leaving Madison, who Layla adored and who had been so kind and reliable, saddened me more than leaving Victor. But there was no choice. I packed my few belongings into a suitcase, getting ready for the hospital stay. I had no love left for Victor and wanted to leave as soon as possible. As I silently continued my preparations, Madison and Layla, who had been out shopping, returned. "We're home." "Oh, who's this?" Madison, surprised to see the unfamiliar woman, and Layla, clinging to her and looking around, didn't seem to understand the situation. So I said it clearly. "Victor and I are getting divorced." "Huh?" Madison looked as shocked as I felt. Then, to Layla, she said, "Have this snack on the way." Handing her a snack she apparently just bought, and sent her to the next room. With only adults left, Madison immediately glared at Victor. "What are you thinking?" Confronted by Madison instead of me, Victor momentarily backed off. "He's divorcing me to start a new life with that woman. Since we'll be strangers, he wants me to leave." Hearing my words, Madison's eyes widened in disbelief. "At a time like this, how can you be so selfish? You're the one who should leave. Don't ever show your face to me again," Madison said firmly, and Victor left the house with a click of his tongue. The woman glanced down at me with a triumphant smile and followed Victor. "Karina, I'm so sorry." Once they were gone, Madison looked at me with a face full of regret. It wasn't her fault, yet I felt guilty for making her feel this way. "Please don't look like that. You've done so much for me, and I can't thank you enough." I felt somewhat relieved that Madison had decisively cut ties with Victor. "Even if you divorce Victor, I'm still on your side, Karina." The house Victor lived in before falling ill was already vacated. Now kicked out by Madison, Victor probably had nowhere to live but was likely planning to move in with that woman. Although he had an insurance and subsidies, he wouldn't have much savings left after his illness. Well, he's a stranger to me now, anyway. Victor apparently filed the divorce papers immediately. We were no longer a couple, but Madison still supported me. I was about to be hospitalized and thought about sending Layla to my parents, but Madison offered to take care of her. "She's already anxious without her mom. A change of environment would only make it worse." Since her work was stable at the moment, Madison insisted on helping me, so I gratefully accepted. When I was about a month into my hospital stay, my mobile phone rang. It was Victor, and of course, I ignored the call. Despite my ignoring, he kept calling repeatedly. When Madison visited me, I told her about it. She said Victor had also called her and even had come to the in-laws' house when ignored. She told him it was impossible to meet me since I was in the hospital. Even if Victor says anything, ignore him. It's too late for him to realize your worth. Madison's words made me feel supported. After saying goodbye to Madison, Victor appeared in my hospital room. How did you find me here? I hadn't told Victor which hospital I was in. After all, he never asked. I went to the family home today. I saw Madison leaving with flowers, so I thought she might be visiting you. He apparently followed Madison here. Victor's desperation was frightening, and as I wondered what his motive was, he clung to me. My illness has relapsed. It turns out, Victor's leukemia had relapsed. While a bone marrow transplant could lead to remission, it wasn't without the risk of relapse. So, become my donor again. His convenient request left me dumbfounded. Here I was, battling cancer, and my ex-husband, who abandoned me when I fell ill, returned as soon as his illness recurred. It was just too convenient. I don't know, maybe it's karma? That's cruel. And don't you have someone more dedicated to support you? Saying this, Victor looked frustrated. Apparently, the moment she learned of his relapse, his mistress had promptly broken up with him. She reportedly said she didn't want to deal with a sick person in her personal life. I have no one but you to rely on now. Victor pleaded, but I was resolute in my response. Absolutely not. You're going to abandon me in my illness. You abandoned me first, remember? Victor fell silent at my words. Besides, I'm currently consulting a lawyer about you. A lawyer? Yes, for the infidelity compensation and Layla's child support. I'm making sure you pay both in full. But I'm sick. So am I. As our unproductive argument continued, a doctor, alerted by the commotion, came into the room. He restrained Victor, who was trying to grab me, and took him away. Victor was later handed over to the police. After being interrogated, a restraining order was issued against him from approaching me. Hearing the noise, Madison returned to the room. She seemed thoroughly disgusted by Victor's selfish behavior. I asked Madison to testify, and after consulting with the lawyer, I decided to sue Victor and his mistress for compensation. While Victor was reluctant, his mistress readily agreed to pay as a settlement. Since then, I had been slowly recovering. Madison had been devotedly supporting me, and Layla, though young, had been helping me without any complaints. The cancer was successfully removed without any signs of spreading elsewhere. Meanwhile, Victor still hadn't found a donor and was living in fear every day. He managed to pay my compensation by depleting his savings but seemed unable to afford Layla's child support. Since he couldn't pay it, he was also not allowed to visit her, leading him to battle his illness alone. Madison and I continued to have a good relationship. When I considered moving out with Layla after my recovery, thinking not to impose further on Madison, she scolded me, telling me not to worry about unnecessary things while recovering. She insisted I use her money freely until I saved enough, so we continued living together for a while. Since Layla had grown very fond of Madison, even after saving enough money, we decided to rent a condo nearby. We visited each other's homes and had become like best friends. Despite the terrible separation from Victor and my own illness, having someone like Madison who steadfastly supported me was a blessing. I hoped Layla grows up to be a strong, kind woman with a sense of justice like Madison, and I looked forward to spending more time together.